Welcome back to the Inappropriate Growth Podcast, where we talk about all the things they don't teach you in business school. Today, we've got a real firecracker on deck. A guy who's not just playing the game, he's changing the damn rules. He's built businesses, sold them for millions, and now he's here to spill the secrets. I'm excited to have as my guest the one and only Bennett Maxwell, a man who's been called a serial entrepreneur, a franchise king, and some things we probably can't say here. But what we really want to know, how the heck does he keep building these explosive businesses? Is it the cookies? Do they have crack in them? No, they don't. Seriously. He gives us the lowdown. Stick around. Things are about to get wild. Stick around. Things are about to get inappropriate. Welcome to the Inappropriate Growth Podcast. I'm Paul Angel, your host. Very excited. Today, I got a special guest. Mr. Bennett Maxwell is here. And Bennett, so that I don't get it wrong or mess up, why don't you tell our listeners and our viewers where you are geographically, how you got there, and what do you do?
Geographically, I am in Salt Lake City. Born and raised in the area, spent the last 10 years or so in California, doing sales, and moved back here about 2 years ago when I got into Dirty Dough, which is a gourmet cookie franchise. If you're familiar with the brand Crumble, that's our major competitor.
I'm curious about the inspiration behind you starting Dirty Dough or that story. What were your early aspirations for the business?
So I guess rewinding to when it started, 2018, a guy that I went to high school with moved to Arizona to start Dirty Dough. He saw gourmet cookies kind of exploding in Utah with Crumble, Chips, some other companies, and he's like, "Oh, I want to do it in Arizona." So what is it? What do you do when you're a college kid? You don't go open up a store with no money. You just start serving cookies out of your apartment. So that's what he was doing, and he posted on Facebook, "Hey, looking for an investor to open up a storefront." So I invested with him. He opened up that first storefront in 2020, March of 2020. I remember because it was a Wednesday, at least I think I remember correctly, of like the government shutdowns, and that the grand opening was scheduled for Friday. So, the world shut down 2 days before the grand opening. Anyways, the end of that year, I was in San Diego running I had a residential solar company that I started with my brother. I was running that, and I'm pushing this guy to franchise the company to me so I could be the first franchisee, open one in San Diego. And long story short, he said, I'm done. I don't want to be in this business 100 hours a week. It's just not worth it. Um, I was a little afraid that I was going to lose my investment. And also, I just listened to a podcast saying you should buy real estate and you should buy businesses to build true wealth. And I'm like, I have some real estate, never even considered buying a business. What the hell? Roll the dice. Um, so I didn't have a background with the food or franchising, but the vision for the business was building a national brand off of the back of franchising, which I just didn't see. The solar company was doing great. I just didn't see it becoming a national brand. And it's how do you leverage the franchise, legal system to go get partners to then expand pretty quickly. And then the model that I had built was all based on a centralized production. So rather than Paul, if you own a Dirty Dough, you have to open up everything yourself, order flour, sugar, butter, mix it. It's here's your cookie, it's pre-portioned stuff, just put it in the oven and press start. Um, so anyways, it took about a year to finally launch it and to franchise it, but because we took the time to centralize the production, make it a lot easier for franchisees, once we did franchise, we took off pretty quick.
I would imagine you found a few initial early challenges in this. We kind of glossed over that. It took about a year. How did you overcome those challenges, especially in? I mean, you already listed right off the top of your head several competitors, and this is a competitive market inside the food industry. How did you overcome that?
Yeah. I mean, challenges right before I got on this, talking on challenges. So, right at the beginning, it's okay, how fast do we want to grow? Well, my goal was 30 stores open in 5 years. And to put that in perspective, we opened our first franchise 2 years ago, and we have over 80 open right now. So, didn't go as according to plan. It went a lot quicker. So starting out, it's like, how big of a warehouse do you get? Well, we got 8,000 square feet because that could probably produce cookies for about 30 stores. That was going to last us for quite a while. Well, before that was even done with the tenant improvements, we'd already sold like 60 something franchises. So there's a challenge. What do you do with that space? You're paying 10 grand a month on it. Well, you sublease it to a company and then you get rid of that challenge. Until this morning, we sublease it to a company that's also in the food space, and food's getting hit pretty hard right now. Inflation's up, economy's down a little bit, so sales are down. These guys are going through new ownership or potentially going out of business. So they're not paying the rents. And then I get a text or an email from the landlord saying 3 days to pay or vacate. So I'm like, so yes, you solve an issue. And then 2 years later, it comes, the challenges never end. But s- in that line of thinking though, that was a huge challenge. And it's always been a big challenge. How do you become a food manufacturing company in addition to franchise support, in addition to running corporate stores, in addition to doing the logistics? So there's been a lot of lessons learned. And today we went from that 8,000 square foot to 32,000 square feet to getting out of that and just using a co-packer.
I'm curious about the Cookie Wars lawsuit. Tell me a little bit about that, and how did that impact your business, and I'm guessing your personal life as well.
Yeah. So yeah, there's probably the number one challenge, or at least the number one public facing challenge. We got sued in May of 2020. Um, by Crumble. Crumble had just put up billboards because we're both here and kind of across the street from each other in Utah, that said, 1 million cookies a day. And I remember I was like, 1 million cookies, and their average cookies, what, like $3.75? Holy crap, they're a $1 billion company already? That's what I remember thinking. And then I got sued by him like the week later. I was like, oh shit. Never been sued, never read a lawsuit. So I'm just like, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to understand this, but whatever. Let me get through it. And then, like, page 2, I'm audibly laughing. I'm like, "This is a joke." So, the way that the legal system works is you can sue anybody for any reason, and then you fight it. But it takes a bit, like, I can sue you for your hair, I'm like, "I don't like your hair and it caused emotional distress." And then you go to the bank right after that and you say, "Hey, give me an SBA loan." And they say, "Hey, do you have any active lawsuits?" And you say, "Yes, but it's stupid. I was just on a podcast and he told me my hair and he sued." Well, is it active? Yes, you can't get a loan. So it's a business strategy, right? You could sue people out of business, not because there's any material to it, but just I could withstand the other party in legal fees because it's going to take 2 years and 200 grand to say this is all bullcrap. Anyways, um, about 6 weeks into it, a local news station picked it up. In that 6 weeks, it was kinda like, "Crap, we're just gonna have to fight it. It's gonna be a waste of money. We'll win, but it's gonna be annoying." And then a local news station picked it up, and then, Crumble's suing Dirty Dough. So when it came out, I was like, "Okay, well, all of these, we have all these franchisees. Um, I have to kind of tell everybody what's going on publicly." So I think the first thing that I did was just posting about it, saying, Crumble, what are you scared of or something like I mean, not no, it was Crumble thinks that they own sprinkles on cookies because there was actually pictures of sprinkles on the cookies, and I said, "Watch out, Granny, Crumble's coming from you next," or something like that, something stupid, right? But it probably got 500,000 impressions on LinkedIn, plus whatever else it got on the other social medias, and then we went to billboards because we had done some billboards coming soon. Crumble did a ton of billboards, and then so now we're responding to their billboards, and it says, "Cookies so good, we're being sued." And it has, like, a cookie with a blurred image with the word censored, kinda like like an explicit pornographic image, and it's on the main corridor in what's called Happy Valley, which is like Mormonville, Utah, right? So or cookies, "Our cookies don't crumble with competition. Let your taste buds be the judge." Things like that, kinda tongue in cheek, and we threw up those billboards, but what got more traction was just me posting on LinkedIn and, tagging Crumble and their owners and like, "Hey, like your billboard, what do you think about mine?" And then that got picked up by several local news stations. I mean, I remember yeah, it was pretty exciting during the time. I was like, "Man, this is the 15th state that's picked this up," and we have 1 location, so it's kinda turning us into, a nationwide brand at that point, 'cause and then we were on CNBC, Good Morning America. But anyways, our reaction to that lawsuit of just like hey, you guys, this is bogus. This is why. I broke down every single point of the lawsuit on LinkedIn, like day by day on how why each of their points was stupid and why they could go verify it. And I think people gravitated to the drama, the openness, the David versus Goliath. I don't know, a mixture of all three of those things, but we got immense support and then immense recognition, nationwide, which caused a bunch of people to buy franchises. So we went from when we were sued, we had sold 60 franchises in the first 6 months. The next 6 months after the lawsuit came public, we went from 60 to 290 franchises sold. So it definitely gave us a little boost.
You say how you were able to transform this into a growth opportunity, by the way you handled the lawsuit. What valuable lesson did you learn, and how can that benefit other entrepreneurs facing a similar challenge?
I mean, not hiding from your problems, I guess is uh the response. Not that you're gonna hide from them, but face your problems. Just face them, and if it's public, it's not like I chose to go public with it, there was a 6-week lapse, and then a news article came up, but once it did, I wasn't gonna be the one to say, "No, I'm not gonna give my opinion. I'm not gonna take the interview." So what happened was CNBC says, "Hey, we heard about this. Do you wanna be interviewed?" I'm like, "Abso-freaking-lutely." Well, then they reach out to Crumble, and Crumble doesn't take any interviews, right? And in that initial release that says Crumble is suing Dirty Dough, it actually said Crumble is suing Dirty Dough and Crave Cookies. And Crave Cookies never did any of this. So I can definitely see, like, it wasn't that we got sued, it was the reaction and it was the authentic, like, I'm going to address every point. I was on LinkedIn for like 3 hours a day responding to every comment because I would have posts that had hundreds of comments and I'm like, nope, that's bull crap. Nope, that's trying to respond to every single one while my attorney was just sweating bullets. No, knowing that Crumble's gonna search through every freaking comment, which they did. But, and fast forward to the end, it's all settled. It's been settled for over a year now, and, the outcome was very favorable to us. I guess Crumble would say the same thing, though. Anyways, but it's all over, so I'm glad for that.
Well, okay, you transformed it into a growth strategy. This obviously shifted your strategy. I mean, you were talking about 50 franchisees in 5 years, and you had 60 in 6 months, and then this made that skyrocket. So your whole strategic plan went out the window. I mean, this is I don't know, a textbook
Yes, it
case,
did.
a textbook case of I think it was Bill Gates who said we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in a year, but we grossly underestimate what we can accomplish in 5 years.
Yep.
What did this do to your overall strategy and your business plan?
I mean, everything changed because once you sell all that, that many franchises, then you have to hire the support, right? So, I mean, we went from 20 employees to 200 employees in like a year and a half. And it was like, that was way too fast. Now, a lot of those are teenagers in corporate stores that I'm kind of, throwing in there. Um, but I mentioned the warehouse. Then now you have to go sign another warehouse. Now you're not paying 10 grand a month, you're paying 40 grand a month. But you're paying 40 grand a month, and then you have to have all your machines, that portion of the dough, but you still only have, like, at the beginning of last year or even like mid last year, we had 7 stores open. I think in April of last year, we sold 7 stores. So, but we're still stuck paying 40 grand a month plus the overhead for the machines, the trucks, and all of that. So it changed everything 20 times. Now, the good parts are economies of scale, right? If the more stores you open, the quicker, the cheaper your flour, sugar, butter is, and then all your overhead costs and all of that come down pretty drastically. So there was a lot of pain points. We grew a lot quicker than what we initially thought. We made a lot of mistakes because of that, but we were able to ride the train of brand awareness. A lot of people do know who Dirty Dough is, where typically a brand that's 2 years old from franchising, you wouldn't have heard of them.
You said it's a unique and memorable brand, sort of in a crowded market. What strategies did you use outside of the lawsuit to differentiate yourself? Why am I struggling with that word? What strategies did you use to differentiate yourself from competitors? You mentioned the risque billboards. What are some more examples of the branding?
Yeah, so the branding, and there's 2 customers. My main customer is the franchisee, and then the secondary customer is who's buying the cookies, right? I still need to take care of that person to take care of the franchisee, but the franchisee is the person that is paying me and that I need to make sure is successful for this brand to go. So as far as the franchisee, how do you differentiate it? Well, do you want to buy a dirty dough or do you want to buy a crumble, right? Do you want to make all your cookies from scratch, have 50 employees, weigh everything by hand, have really high labor, not benefit from economies of scale because you're buying 50-pound bags of flour? Or would you rather buy a dirty dough that I ship you a pre-portioned stuffed cookie puck and you just put it in the oven and press start, you know? So, and you can operate at a 500 square feet with one employee at half the total, startup cost. So that's how we were targeting the franchisee. Lower cost, easier to run, lower overhead. The customer was a little bit harder. It's a cookie. What, there's only so many ways you can make a cookie. So looking at the competitor, the major competitor in the space, what do they do? It's a large, plain, flat cookie with a half inch of frosting. So rather than doing half inch of frosting and focusing on the top of the cookie, can we focus in on the inside of the cookie? And then we adapted the name and said dirty dough means the dough is dirty. When it didn't mean that before, it just kind of sounded cool. But now dirty dough means the dough is dirty because we focus on the inside of the cookie. And we took off all of the branding and messaging from there and I wanted to correlate it with life because entrepreneurship kicks you in the butt every day. And it's like, don't wait for life to be perfect for it to be enjoyed. Life could be messy and dirty and imperfect on the outside, but there's still goodness on the inside, right? You just need to open it up, find it, whatever. That's what our cookies represent. So before you walk into a dirty dough store, you see, we care about your feelings. So it's kind of a mental health, tongue in cheek message, but that's on the window of every store. Then you walk in, the first thing that you'll see is the inside matters most, or it's what's on the inside that counts. And then you order a box of cookies, and on your way out, you're checking out the box and it says, life gets messy and that's okay. So a lot of it was making a unique product with stuffed cookies and then drawing a correlation to a brand that's relatable. And everybody's life is hard, but everybody can always find the goodness inside. So I think it's a very relatable message, especially with a big mental health, focus that the United States seems to, maybe even the world seems to be leaning towards.
I'm curious how adversity shaped your entrepreneurial journey. What qualities of mindset that you either have or you've developed that's helped you overcome obstacles and achieve your goals? I mean, dirty
Yeah.
dough being just one example.
Um, First one that comes to my mind is a lesson I learned from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that book. I read it in that book, and then I also kind of went through my own experience of, if you've ever heard of Cutco knives, that was my first like job out of high school. And you're selling like $2,000 knives. You get paid 15 bucks an hour commission, whatever one's higher. But the first week is 40 hours of training. So I'm asking them, hey, 40 hours of training, 15 bucks an hour, that's what I'm going to get paid. Right. And they're like, no, trainings, you don't get paid for training. I'm like, this is a freaking scam. How are they not going to pay me for my first 40 hours? Um, Told my dad I wasn't going to take the job. And he's like, wait, why would you not? Like, sales training is very expensive. And if you're getting sales training for free, you should take the sales training even if you don't take the job. So completely shifted my mentality of like, oh, this is a free education on sales. And sales is a highly sought after skill that is expensive, to go learn about if depending the method. So working to learn, not to earn, specifically as it relates to sales, I think was really good. I dropped out of college with a semester left before graduating with a pre-med. I was going to be a pediatrician. And when I dropped out, it wasn't because I don't like the education. I just didn't like the format of the education. But I committed to myself because I was knocking doors. I committed to myself. I was like, I'm going to spend, the same time, money, effort, energy, investment, whatever, in becoming a professional salesperson, a professional communicator, that as I was, at becoming a pediatrician. So that was another really big, I guess, learning point. And the last one I'll leave with, and this is more for sales, but it just translated completely over. There's people that'll knock on your door selling solar and they make $1 million a year, and you're just like, there's no way that a door-to-door salesperson is making $1 million a year. And those people exist. Now, what is that person doing that I'm not doing? And can I identify that? And then can I learn what that is so I can be at the same level as this person? Um, and so just having that mindset of what is the top person doing that I can't learn and figure out? There's nothing. That's what I believed in the sales side. So when I'm buying dirty dough, I'd met the Crumble owners And I'm like, they're nothing special. They're cool guys, whatever. Um, they're not doing anything that special. What are they doing that I can't learn? So having that, I guess, follow me, becoming a professional communicator, focusing on learning, not earning, um, and trying to bridge the gap of where I am to where I want to be, knowing that it's just knowledge, that has been very beneficial in helping me, I guess, switch industries. And like, it doesn't matter if it's solar or cookies, it's kind of the same concepts. I just need to go figure out what the top guys are doing.
So what's going on right now with Dirty Dough? I'm curious about your long term vision and goals, but I kind of got the hint that we've moved on or we've changed the relationship a little bit. And I want to
Yes.
see where you see this business or the business that you're into now in the next 5 or 10 years.
Yeah. So Craveworthy Brands is like a private equity restaurant holding company. We partnered with them, and in the deal, we got Greg Majewski as our CEO. He ran Jimmy John's. He was their CEO during their rapid growth. So he came on at the beginning of the year, 10 months ago, and has been cleaning up all my messes and all my challenges, to put it in a better perspective. 2 weeks ago, Craveworthy fully acquired us, which, man, I feel amazing about. The way that they acquired us is referred to as a stock swap. So rather than giving you cash, you get equity in the parent company. So in a way, I'm still fully invested, but now my equity is held at the Craveworthy level, representing 15 different food brands, and I've taken the role of franchise sales for each of those brands.
Speaking of controlling the narrative, it sounds like you mastered on LinkedIn and stuff with the whole war. In today's digital age, I think it's crucial for businesses to manage that their own narrative, maybe in a way that makes your attorneys not maybe tighten up their sphincter muscle quite so much because they're worried about what you're going to do and say. How do you approach public relations and media relations to ensure your story is accurate? And what way do you recommend doing that?
I had zero strategy when I did it. Um, so I'm just gonna tell you what I did, and and that was my strategy. Not that it was thought out or is the best strategy. Um, just be out there giving your opinion on everything as often as possible. Because I remember the first time I was on a podcast, I was like, man, so nervous. Like, what are the questions? And then I'm like reviewing in my mind, and how am I going to answer these? 200 podcasts later, you don't even prep and on purpose because it's like, one, I've already answered all the questions. Two, I want it to come across authentic. But the only way to do that, whether you're knocking a door, selling a franchise, or taking a news interview, to be comfortable, is you do it 100 times. Even if nobody's listening, even if it's in the mirror. So I think just getting out there. And then on the social media side, it also helped because I was already building like a brand presence there on a personal brand, which I only started 2 years ago. When I did my solar company, I never posted on social media, just didn't leverage it. But I was told, post every day, just post every single day, and good things will happen. And so you do start building up a following. And I imagine if it's like a CNBC and they look at a LinkedIn, or they see that there's 80 plus thousand followers on an Instagram or whatever, it's like, I do think that that builds credibility for when it's time to share your opinion on a podcast or a news interview or Forbes or whatever. I think that all kind of ties in together.
Well, let's say somebody was looking to do what you did. They're looking to explore, jump feet first into the whole acquiring a business, franchising it, moving, competing with a bigger player. What advice would you give them?
Um, the number one thing that helped me was getting advisors. And let me explain what that is because I didn't know what it was 2 years ago. I've heard of advisors, a board of advisors or board of directors controls a company, typically a public company. Didn't really know much about it. I take a startup course and he's like, "No, you get in a board of advisors. They have no say in the company. They just give you advice." And it's like, "What? Like who do you get on that?" Well, the guy teaching me this founded a company called InfoSpace, and he took Yellow Pages online, and when it went public, it was a $30 billion company. Who better to be on your advisory board than the guy who's done a $30 billion company teaching you about advisory boards? And so it's like, okay, well, how do I get somebody like that? What do I have to offer them? I don't have money to pay them. I just bought the business. The business wasn't profitable because I started hiring corporate, staff, but there's just one store. What do? Well, good thing he helped me set it up. You give them equity, like very small amounts of equity, 0.5%, 1%, 1.5% of equity for them to give you advice. But keep in mind, this is a percent of a company that's worth nothing. That's losing money every month. So I got John Richards on first, gave him 1.5% of equity as my senior advisor, and I set up a 2-year vesting plan. So every 6 months, he secures a quarter, 25% of the equity. Meaning, Paul, if I brought you on as advisor because you're going to kick ass and help me out, and after 3 months, you fall off the face of the earth, and I offered you 1%, you don't get to keep that percent. I'm going to withdraw all of it because you only, fulfilled your role for 3 months. He didn't hit that 6-month mark to keep 25%. So that's my advice. Go figure out what the hell an advisory board is and get advisors. Once I secured John, then he brought on Steve Hart, who owns the largest property management franchisor in the nation. So now I have a franchising expert. And then the third person that I was bringing on to my advisory board was Jill Summer Hayes. She founded a company called Maui Wowie Smoothies and Coffee in '83, first mobile franchise in the world, grew it to 600 plus locations before exiting. She ended up coming on as CEO rather than advisor. But the point is the same. Surround yourself with people that have been there, done that, because it's hard work and you don't know what you know. So get people. And if you don't have money, figure out how to set up an advisory board.
Great advice. Great advice. Years ago, I started a magazine, a sports magazine. Didn't know anything about it, but I was a photographer, I was a writer, and I was really into youth sports. Like I was into Little League baseball and high school football and all that kind of stuff. And I knew enough to be dangerous about laying stuff out, right? I could do it, but
Yeah.
I could impress people who knew nothing about it. But the people who knew about it were like, oh yeah, you remind me of me when I was young and stupid. Kind of that. I was in that
Yep.
teenager stage, and well, I produced a magazine in my garage on my own, wrote all the articles, took all the pictures, sold all the ads. I mean, I did everything, laid it out, and I was so proud of it. And then I showed it to my friend. He wanted to bring me to it where I used to live. I moved like 2 hours east, and well, back home, he said this magazine would kill it here. Let's bring it over here. I was like, okay, now I'm laying out 2 magazines, and that's going to be tricky. And so he said, well, we had this friend, her name was Elizabeth, and she did like if you go buy a Bentley at a Bentley dealership, I don't know, they don't have those around here, but if you went to one of the dealerships, there's a book. You get a book that's like a magazine, but it's just on that model. It shows all the features and specs, and it has a bunch of widescreen landscape pictures that are kind of blurry, but the car's in focus, all that stuff.
Yeah.
She made those books for Bentley. So this is someone, who had an established business doing that. I gave her all the files and everything I had stored in Dropbox and said, this is how I made my magazine. She goes, I can help you. I tell you what, let me take your first magazine, all the source files, and redo it and show you what I can do. And she did it. And it was just like my eyes teared up. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is the most beautiful magazine I've ever seen. Wow. And then she told me what it would cost, like 3,200 a page, like 38 pages. It was like, well, there goes 5 times the expected
Yeah.
profit if everything lined up perfectly. We can't afford her. But
Yeah.
now I'm looking at what I do like crap. Like, this is no good. I've already seen, if you ever had something, you didn't have a problem with it till someone loaned you a nicer one and you're like, mine sucks. This is not good.
Yeah.
That's how I was looking at it. And on a whim, I said, well, Elizabeth, what if we gave you, and there was now 3 partners, and we were 3 even partners, like you said, a business that's not profitable yet. There's no revenue or expenses yet. We're just feeling our ways through it. What if we offered you 25% instead of any kind of pay? Thinking, who's going to say yes to that? She did in a heartbeat. She was like, yes. In fact, I didn't know this, but her and her father had explored a territory in Central Florida to do some kind of industry um, Car Traveler and Winnebago tour magazines, and
Uh-huh.
and she was going to do the layout, and they were going to give you some content, but you had to create your own local content. You had to sell the ads, and so she was very familiar with the business model. And she's like, "Wow, this one." And they were about to pull the trigger on $120,000 franchise fee for the magazine, plus all the expenses, and move,
Yeah.
from Louisiana to Florida, and that's scary. Well, this was free in her mind,
Yeah.
and it was local, and she could work with her existing clientele, and she got a lot of business because people would say, "Oh, I want to buy an ad, but I don't have an ad." She goes, "Well, I design ads." So she would design their ads, and then she would she that was her MO. She would take your collateral or whatever and
Um,
take it and remake it and show you what she would have done with it and blow you away because she was so
and you're
good.
like, "That looks good. Yeah, I would put some ad dollars." Yeah,
Well,
that so
I
so did you
thought
end
we
up
were
doing the deal with
ripping
her?
her off. Well, later on, when the business was very successful, the 25%, when she's wanting to cash in, it was like, shit, a lot of money. We didn't think 0.5% or
Yeah.
1.5%
Well,
advisor
and
fee.
I'll clarify on that. If you're giving somebody a 0.5% or 1.5, it's advice. So they're not gonna go do work for you, but
Right.
it's, "Hey, John, I need to go. I'm trying to raise a few million right now. I've never done this. What do I do? Here's how to organize the pitch deck and the data room, and here's your first 30 contacts." That's what you get. So you still get a lot of value, but they're not gonna do the
Yeah,
day-to-day
I mean,
work
she probably did
in the
most
business,
of the work.
which she did for you. She did all of the actual work for
No,
you, which is
I
good.
say it was painful. It stunk because, for 2 quarters we had no profit because we bought her out. But she had set it up. It was on autopilot. We could get it done way cheaper than what she initially quoted us, and the magazine was still profitable after she got bought out. And but the magazine would have never risen to what it was
Yeah.
without
It's
that
the
person. So I'm a big believer in getting creative with the advisory, especially when you don't have any money. I think that's brilliant.
Well, smaller piece out of a bigger pie. That's what I just did, right? I traded 50 something percent equity in my company for a smaller amount, but now, ownership in over 15 different brands to kind of spread that out because you never know. Like you're launching a business. Do I want to invest 120 grand before I even know if this magazine is going to take off? Probably not. So let's bring her in and it's free. But yeah, then it's always hindsight. It's like, crap, I should have waited. But it's like, no, and you still have something that you would have
Well,
probably
she
never had.
accepted the 25% offer so fast. Maybe I was like,
Yeah.
ooh, maybe I was big.
Yeah, yeah. You could have offered her 10.
Oh well, live and learn.
Oh,
Uh,
well, but now you have all the experience and you have a successful magazine. And she probably worked harder because she's like,
and we
I
sold it.
I
And when
own
we
this.
sold it, I mean, I did it with nothing. So one of the four partners brought in $50,000, put it in the bank. We never touched it
Okay.
because I had already
Well,
done it. So I was already on a net
yeah.
90 to pay the printer, and it was a free magazine. So I just needed enough revenue, ad revenue, to cover the printing, and we were selling, four and six issue plans, and they were paying up
Mhm.
front. So it was like we were cash
Yeah.
heavy
Great
on the
model.
front end. Um, we had to make sure we were getting in new clients because when everybody prepays one issue and then 3 issues later there's no new ones, we've already
Yeah.
spent all that money. So we need to get some new blood, or we need to start encouraging people to pay quarterly or something, because it was, we didn't have a CPA on the team. It was a
Yeah.
lawyer, it was an oil field service salesman, a printer, and then me. It's hard to, I was a photographer, it's hard to say what we were. All right. Well, let's say somebody wants in, or is interested in what you guys are doing, or needs to get in touch with you, or wants to talk about pre-making cookies. What's the best way to get in touch with you?
BennettMaxwell.com, just my first and last name, and it has links to all of my social media. I run a podcast called Deeper Than Dough. It's all focused on joy and fulfillment and the emotional side of the entrepreneur's journey. And then on there also dirtydough.com, craveworthy.com. So Craveworthy has hot chicken brands, Mediterranean. I'm still learning all of this because it's new. Genghis Girls, like a Mongolian. So there's a larger portfolio of food franchise options. I still think Dirty Dough obviously is very simple and low cost, and When I tell you, Paul, you can show up to any Dirty Dough across 25 states and bake cookies, like you can. You just pick any cookie, put it in the oven, press start. It's that simple because it's already kind of pre-done for you. Ovens are programmed. So um, the simplicity I think is still there on the Dirty Dough
Is
side.
it like that
But
tube of cookie dough? My mom used to always fuss at me for eating raw out of the
before you ever bake
toaster.
it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly that. But I do think franchising in general, even if it's not in the food space, because you did ask that question earlier about like, what would you say to an entrepreneur looking to franchise? I would start with buying a franchise before starting a franchisor. So if you're in painting and you want to, like, can you go buy a painting or an HVAC, something in the home service space? Because the franchise model is really cool. It's very similar to what you did. Like, I don't want to invest 120,000 in something that doesn't work yet in this magazine. Well, I'm gonna invest 120,000 to pay this lady, and she works like it's been working for her. I would say the franchise system is similar. You're buying a system that has worked for other people in others in a different market, but it's very likely to work in your market. And then if it works, then go create your franchise after. Then go create your magazine after, right? I do think that's the best model to go for.
Well, I learned a bunch of stuff today. I'm excited that you called up and you got on the show. Thank you for being here. In fact, strangely hungry for a tube of Pillsbury cookie dough. Might run to the store this afternoon. Well, I appreciate it. This has been enlightening and interesting. And to you and to our listeners and our viewers, we're on audio and video. If you're going to grow anything, just know that you're probably going to have to do something inappropriate.